Properly staffing and equipping fire departments keeps our communities safe and saves the lives of civilians and firefighters alike. Nobody knows this better than Joe Biden. As senator, he championed the SAFER Act, legislation that provided federal funding to local fire departments to maintain safe staffing levels. The sad reality is, SAFER has never been appropriated at more than 50% of what it was originally authorized in 2003. And if you adjusted that for inflation, it's about 23% today. There's no way to quantify who may have lived had SAFER been fully funded. We're calling on Congress to reauthorize this program immediately, fully fund the SAFER Act and the FIRE Act, the partner grant program providing critical equipment that keeps the public and firefighters safe.
While fire can impact anyone, unfortunately, we've seen time and again that it disproportionately affects our most vulnerable populations, the elderly, our children, the disabled, and low-income families. The devastating Fairmount fire highlights this tragic truth.
It's been 15 long years since we last had a ladder truck at the station, and so much has changed since then. The surrounding communities have seen major growth. Sadly, 2 years ago, they saw incredible tragedy. And just let me tell you, 8 years of mayor, that was one of the saddest days that I've ever experienced.
An absolute tragedy in the city of Philadelphia today. Fire officials confirming 13 people killed, 7 of them children, in a fire that happened in Philadelphia's Fairmount neighborhood. It was just after 6:30 that fire crews responded to the house fire. When crews arrived, they saw heavy fire coming from the front of the building on the second floor. They said 8 people self-evacuated. 2 of those people were taken to the hospital. 1 of those 2 was a child.
This is without a doubt one of the most tragic days in our city's history. Loss of so many people in such a tragic way. I don't have much more to say than please keep all these folks, and especially these children, in your prayers. Losing so many kids is just devastating.
I hope it's not lost on anyone. 2 things that I think are part of the story that the president's presence tells us here today. Number 1, this president gives a damn, not just about the city of Philadelphia, not just about those who run toward danger, our firefighters and those here at Ladder 1, the great women and men of the Philadelphia Fire Department, but he gives a damn about this community that was sent reeling after we lost 12 of our own here. He noted that, and he also noted the need for greater investment in this fire company. And he made a commitment to the good people of Philadelphia, to the mayor, to the fire commissioner, to the people who used to work here, and to the people in this neighborhood that rely on those of you who put your lives at risk. The president made good on that promise to the people of Philadelphia. And he came here today because he cares. He came here today because he gives a damn. The reopening of Ladder 1, we just heard that on the radio, that it is now open for service, is due to the fact that we have a president of the United States who cares deeply about this community, cares deeply about public safety, and he has always been there for our firefighters and for our community.
I had the pleasure of being here on the last day that Ladder 1 was closed back in 2009. So it was a sad day that this truck was decommissioned back then. With my 20 years on this job, I know how important it is to have enough engines and ladder trucks in service.
Before I begin, I have to make an admission in full disclosure. I would not be here were it not for my local fire company in Wilmington, Delaware. They saved my life. I had a cranial aneurysm. It was in the middle of a snowstorm. Not a joke. I couldn't figure out how they were going to, for President Reagan was nice enough to send Air Force Helicopter 1, take me down, but it couldn't fly. And so my fire department came up, put me in the back, and took me on heavy snow on the day I went down to Walter Reed, because that's where I had to get for this operation. I got there for a 9-hour operation, saved my life. I'm not a joke. My firefighters, the guys I grew up with, they saved my life. This January is going to be 2 years since the fire ripped through the 3-story row house in the Fairmount neighborhood, which was mentioned already. Engine 13 got the call that day. They raced to the firehouse. From the firehouse, arrived at the scene along with engines from other parts of the city. It was clear and later determined that the blaze started when a Christmas tree in the home caught fire. Ultimately killed 12 people, mostly children, as young as 2 and 3 years old. But you know what? In the wake of that tragedy, Local 22 President Mike came along and said, look, Mike told me that during the 2008 recession, a number of fire companies across the city had to be decommissioned. One of those companies was right here, Ladder 1, from this station that we're standing in today. On the day of Fairmount fire, if the company hadn't been decommissioned, Ladder 1 would have been the closest truck to the fire. God only knows whether it would have been able to get there that much earlier to save lives, would have responded, but maybe save some lives. When I spoke to the city officials here, I told them everything I could. I'd do everything I could to bring back Ladder 1 back into service as well as others. During the pandemic, we invested $350 billion in the American Rescue Plan and in my administration. States and cities could use it to keep firefighters in the job, including here in Philly. I also signed a budget providing $360 million each for both assistance to firefighters grant program and a Safer grant program, for hundreds of emergency response vehicles and thousands of protective equipment called turnout gear. I included money for critical cancer research screening because that's the cause of death of most firefighters because of exposure to toxic exposure on the job. And helped put almost 1,200 more local firefighters in the field across the country. Using previous Safer grant awards, Philadelphia had already been able to bring back several line companies back online that had been decommissioned during the Great Recession. In the wake of the tragic Fairmount fire, my team worked with city officials and the mayor to help get them to apply for a new Safer grant to bring the rest of the decommissioned companies back into service, including Ladder 1. As a result, the city just got an additional $22 million to fund salaries and benefits for 72 firefighters. On January 8, new firefighter cadet class is entering the academy, supported by this grant. And starting today, for the first time in nearly 15 years, this neighborhood once again has a ladder company on call 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, ready to keep them safe. Mike, I kept my promise and got the job done. Now, you all heard me say before, God made man, and he also made a few firefighters. The overwhelming human instinct is to run away from danger. I think the most frightening thing anybody could do is run into a fire. Almost anything else is less consequential. But when the bell rings, you all just run toward it. And you put your gear on, you jump in the truck, and you do what you got to do. Because being a firefighter isn't just what you do, it's who you are. It's who the hell you are. And we know that's what produces firefighters. And the only thing that protects firefighters is more firefighters. Let me say it again. The only thing that protects firefighters is more firefighters. Good equipment, obviously, but more firefighters. For my entire career, I've been committed to doing everything I can to put more firefighters in the field and to give you the training and equipment you need to do your job. That's what today's all about, in my view. So let me close with this. You know, when the worst happens, when those alarms go off, when everything and everyone you love is in danger, there's no better sight in the world than a firefighter ready to go to work. So thank you for being who you are. And thank your families, by the way. Thank your families. That alarm goes off, man, and their hearts go up in their throats. And they wait for that phone call, wondering what happened. There's so damn many of you giving your lives across the country. So many of you. So I can't thank you enough. I think you're the thing, you and the medics that travel are the most consequential people in the community. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I promise you, we're not stopping here. We're going to keep going. Thank you, thank you, thank you.